What's going on, everybody? Welcome back into the FantasyPros YouTube channel. My name is Lucas Wenzel, and today we are talking about 10 players that you should be looking to stash ahead of this weekend slate and ahead of next week's waivers as well. But before we dive into that list, do you want a chance at winning a signed TJ Hawkinson Minnesota Vikings jersey courtesy of Pristine Auction, the premier autograph sports memorabilia auction house? You need to subscribe to the FantasyPros YouTube channel right now. Comment below on this video, and that is it. We will be announcing a winner right here on the channel, so make sure to turn on those notifications so you can know when new episodes are up and to come claim your prize. Didn't win? You can still sign up at pristineauction.com using the link in our video description, and if you use the registration code FantasyPros, you'll get $10 off your first order. Kicking off our list this week is New Orleans Saints rookie wide receiver A.T. Perry, who's rostered in 0% of leagues. Now, why would I start this week's list with a guy who's available in almost every single league and on bye this week? Michael Thomas left early in week 10 after suffering a knee injury against the Vikings. At this point, we don't know the severity of it, but we also know that Michael Thomas doesn't recover the quickest from injuries. When he left in week 10, it wasn't Rashid Shaheed that came in and took the snaps. It was actually A.T. Perry who led the entire team at snaps after MT's departure. He drew 4 targets on those snaps, and if Michael Thomas does miss week 12 and potentially beyond, there's a great chance A.T. Perry steps up as the wide receiver 2 in this New Orleans Saints offense. The second player on our list this week is Dallas Cowboys running back Rico Gathers, who's rostered in 13% of leagues. The Cowboys once again stomped the Giants in week 10, and there was little need for Pollard to stay on the field in such a lopsided game. In relief, Gathers racked up 12 rush attempts, averaging 6.5 yards per carry, leading to 79 yards and a score. All of those metrics were season highs for Gathers, and it's highly unlikely that we get this level of production from him rest of season. Then again, he does draw the Panthers this week, but at the very least, he's a premium handcuff stash for Tony Pollard, and should anything happen to Pollard, people will be going bonkers for Rico Gathers on the waiver wire. Coming in next on our list is Zade Jones, wide receiver for the Jacksonville Jaguars, who's rostered in 16% of leagues. Now, I know there's a lot going on with Jones right now. He was obviously arrested earlier this week and still not fully recovered from his knee injury. That being said, he was seen at practice earlier this week in limited fashion. What we also know about Zade Jones is that he is a known and trusted commodity in fantasy football. In 2 of 3 games he's played in this year, Jones has finished as the wide receiver 28 or better. Even despite exiting early in week 5, Jones has also seen at least 5 targets in every game, including 2 games with 6+ to start the season. He was used in the red zone as well while active, and the Jaguars are eagerly awaiting their perimeter field stretcher to return. Doug Peterson labeled him as day-to-day earlier this week, but as soon as Zade Jones is active again, he'll be a frequent player in flex consideration. Up next is New England Patriots running back Ezekiel Elliott, who's rostered in 39% of leagues. Let me start with this. Don't go breaking your neck trying to get Ezekiel Elliott off the waiver wire. There's a reason this is a stash video. At the same time, though, with the Patriots on bye this week, you might not have a hard time stashing him if he's out there floating in your league. Zeke posted a season-high 88 yards en route to finishing as a top 25 running back for the 4th time this year. Typically, this Patriots offense isn't one I'd want to target, but the run game might be the only thing going somewhat right for this team right now. That could fare well for Zeke considering the Patriots have the second easiest remaining schedule for running backs, drawing the Giants, Chargers, Steelers, Broncos, Bills, and Jets in 6 of their last 7 games. My tight end stash of the week is Tyler Conklin of the New York Jets, who's rostered in 17% of leagues. Conklin has been sneaky good as of late, catching all 13 of his targets for 136 yards over the last 2 weeks. He scored no lower than 12.6 fantasy points in PPR formats in those 2 games, and you have to like the schedule coming up for him as well. He gets the Bills this week, who have allowed the 6th most fantasy points to tight ends over the last month, and then gets Miami twice, Atlanta, Houston, and Washington, who were all top 15 in fantasy points allowed to tight ends on the season. If Zach Wilson continues to involve Tyler Conklin in this offense, he could make a sneaky emergence as a top 12 tight end play rest of season. The next player on our list is Arizona Cardinals rookie wide receiver Michael Wilson, who's rostered in 13% of leagues. After scoring 26 fantasy points in week 4, Wilson has cooled off over the last 6 weeks. What's encouraging though is that he's still averaging around 85% of the team's snaps and has now seen 6+ targets in back-to-back games. Maybe more importantly, those target numbers stayed up with Kyler Murray's return as well. Wilson earned an 18.7% target share last week and almost hit pay dirt too. With the 4th easiest strength of schedule remaining for wide receivers, there could be another big game in the works for Wilson, and it's best to stash him on your roster now before that big game happens. Next up is Tennessee Titans rookie running back TaiJ Spears, who's rostered in 39% of leagues. Derrick Henry was bottled up by the Buccaneers in Week 10, and TaiJ Spears remained plenty active in the team's passing attack. He's now drawn 4+ targets in 7 of 9 games this year, including 11 targets over his last 2 games. His snap counts also continue to hover between the 50 to 60% range, and he's going to remain an active part of this team's offensive attack. Additionally, if Derrick Henry does miss any time down the stretch, Spears is stepping into a bell cow role where he'll inherit the Kings' rushing work, but also maintain his pass-catching ceiling. He is a must stash at this point of the season. The next player to crack my stash list this week is Jaylen Gon, wide receiver for the Los Angeles Chargers, who's rostered in only 5% of leagues. In his second game back into action, Guyton had himself a solid day, catching 4 of 6 targets for 41 yards and a score. He finished the week as the wide receiver 25 in PPR formats and saw his snaps increase from 57% to 79%. I don't necessarily think he's a threat to putting Quentin Johnston's breakout on hold, but I do think it's important to note that Guyton has already built up history and rapport with Justin Herbert. With Josh Palmer on IR, Guyton could continue to work his way into the wide receiver 2 role for this Chargers offense, even potentially seating himself ahead of the young rookie Quentin Johnston. Another running back stash you can look to target this week is Kenneth Gainwell of the Philadelphia Eagles, who's rostered in 26% of leagues. There's really not any standalone value here for Gainwell, but he has an annoying way of showcasing a role with upside. He scored in 2 of his last 3 games, and in one of the games he didn't score, he drew 5 targets and caught all of them for 30 yards. That's 8 PPR points. Look, at this point in the season, I'm scrolling through the top 10 to 12 running backs in fantasy football and seeing whose handcuffs I can stash off the waiver wire. Because should anything happen to DeAndre Swift, Kenny Gainwell is going to be the guy to step up in his absence, as we saw at the start of the season. Wrapping out our stash list this week is Tennessee Titans wide receiver Kyle Phillips, who's rostered in 1% of leagues. Over the last 2 weeks, Phillips has appeared to become a favorite of Will Levis, as he's drawn 5+ targets in each game and has nearly 130 receiving yards across those weeks. It is a bummer that Treylon Burks hasn't managed to stay healthy this year, but we may now be seeing a frontrunner for the wide receiver 2 role in this Titans offense. After a poor Week 10 showing, Levis should look to turn things around in Week 11 against the Jaguars, and Kyle Phillips might be the deep roster stash you need this week. Alrighty, y'all, that is all I have for you today. Remember, you want a chance at winning a signed TJ Hawkinson Minnesota Vikings jersey courtesy of Pristine Auction, the premier autographed sports memorabilia auction house? You need to subscribe to the FantasyPros YouTube channel right now, comment below on this video, and that is it. That is all you need to do, my friends. We will be announcing a winner right here on the channel, so make sure to turn on those notifications so you can be alerted when new episodes are up and to come claim your prize when we announce it. And hey, if you didn't win, you can still sign up at pristineauction.com using the link in our video description, and if you use the registration code FantasyPros, you'll get $10 off your first order.